A man is only as faithful as his options. And I said, basically, successful men cheat. Let me say you this, guys. Let me say this to the men who keep deciding to jump in and pull your cape out virtue signal. Shut up. If you're a guy who don't agree with it, if you're a guy that don't cheat, just shut up. Because other men don't want to hear you saying, I don't do that.
That's right, men. If you love and respect your wife or partner, could you please just shut up? Because the red pill community here are trying desperately to paint a picture of all men being degenerates, okay? And you jumping in here and saying that you're not like that, it's ruining their propaganda, okay?
Professional women, and I will tell you that modern women are losing.
Modern women are losing what? Some kind of competition that's meant to be happening between men and women?
They're losing because here's the reality, ladies. Let's talk about your education. I often hear people talk about, well, Kevin always says that men don't care about your education. We don't care about your education in this regard.
Well, first of all, when you say we, I don't think you speak on behalf of all men. But also, it doesn't matter whether other people care about your education. If a woman or a man wants to be educated, well, that's their decision, that's up to them. The more people want to be educated, the good, okay? But also, when it comes to, romantic relationships, whether people prefer somebody who is highly educated, seems to be a matter of opinion.
We can't use you. Modern women are losing because we can't use you. Pretty much there's one use modern women have for most men, and that's sex. See, before, but hold on, let me flip the script. Ask the average single woman today, if you have to work just as hard, maybe even harder if you want kids, with a man, do you want a man? And almost 100% of the time, women will say, well, no, because modern women have been made to believe that a man is supposed to make their lives easier.
Okay, I really don't believe Kevin here when he says this. He says almost 100% of women say this, but then doesn't show any evidence for it. And I don't believe him, okay, because depending on what kind of relationship we're talking about, right? If we're talking about entering into a marriage and starting a family with somebody, then I'm pretty sure that almost everybody, both male and female, would say that, yeah, that is harder work than if you stay single, okay? One of the benefits of staying single is that you do you would have everything easier, as in you've only got yourself to consider, okay, and you can do whatever you want, okay. So relationships, yeah, they need to be worked at, but particularly if you're talking about having children with somebody, then yeah, that is hard work, I'm in no doubt that it is far more stressful for people who have children than people who don't. I mean, it's great and everything, but I'm just saying, it's not easy. But also, I find it extremely interesting, how the red pill community always, kind of makes out that, women don't do anything, and it's always the man that does everything, and the woman has it so easy all the time. When, if you're talking about having a family, it's the woman who has to get pregnant, obviously, and carry the children. Her body goes through a hell of a lot during pregnancy and childbirth, and then raising the children, that's more stressful for, that's going to be stressful sometimes for men and women. So yeah, that is going to be a lot more hard work than if somebody just chooses to stay single. So I really don't believe Kevin here when he says that, almost 100% of women who want to find a man and start a family with him, expecting that to make their life easier. Who would think that, working at a relationship, working at a marriage, and having a family and all that is going to be just easy? It's no, I don't think anybody sensible would think that.
Modern women have been made to believe that having a man is supposed to make their lives easier or more comfortable. So if they can pay their own bills, provide for themselves, what do they need you for? And that is a losing mentality. Let me tell you why it's a losing mentality. Because you're going into relationships with men like this. What do I need you for? So if you went to Spelman, if you went to Georgia Tech, if you went to Alabama, if you went to UPenn, and you have all this other stuff, women today are not allowing themselves to be used by men. Let's change. You're not allowing yourself to be used by men.
I've heard it exactly the opposite to that, okay? The red pill community, like, it seems to have sort of, as time has gone on, done a complete U-turn, and they've gone from a place of, originally they were saying traditional relationships, the woman was using the man because she was using him as a provider, and they were completely and utterly disregarding like her worth, the worth of the mother, the worth of the homemaker, the feminine role in a traditional relationship. They were completely disregarding that and saying only the man's role as the provider was worthwhile, and claiming that the woman was parasiting off of the man. But now, when you get more women who are like, well, actually, we don't need a man to be the provider. We can provide for ourselves. We're capable of getting highly educated. We're capable of getting good jobs and earning good wages. We don't need a man to provide for us. A lot of men in the red pill community seem like they're actually freaking out about that, okay? Partly because some of them want to be needed. Okay, fair enough. I can understand that. I don't like the catty sort of bitchy way that some feminists sort of come out with this "we don't need no man" kind of thing, in that sort of in a sort of putting men down kind of way. Okay, but then some guys in the red pill community, I think they're threatened because they don't want women to do better than what men do. They don't want women to be more educated than men. They don't want women to get good jobs. They don't want women to earn good wages because they see it as a threat, okay? And some guys, just want women to be, well, basically like their property, okay? Some guys in the red pill community, I know they don't reflect the majority of men, but I'm just saying that's how some of them are, okay? And it's interesting that Kevin here is claiming that the problem is that women are not allowing their self to be used, because when I've heard this exactly the opposite, that it's the woman is using the man in a traditional relationship. Okay, but then I am of an opinion that men and women who get into relationships should be together because they want to be together, okay, and not because they feel they need each other, and that a transactional relationship is actually unhealthy, okay? If two people want to get married or live together and have a family, it should be because they want to be with each other, not it shouldn't just be an agreement.
And that's why you're losing. They're losing because you're not can't be used. Women who win allow men to use them. Feminine, beautiful, and inspirational. We should be able to use you. You are a helpmeet after all. Well, and here's the thing. This is why I tell men in general, black men in particular, don't believe this crap about partners. Women today want you to be able to pay the bills because they feel like if you can't pay their bills, you can't tell them what to do. Well, here's the thing. If you're going to pay some bills, you need to be using her. She needs to be a feminine asset, a feminine tool. You should be able to use everything about this woman to your benefit and to her benefit. You should be able to use her network, her education, her income, anything that she possesses should be yours to use and direct for the betterment of the family. And this is the problem. Women today don't want to be used. Women today are so gosh darn selfish that this is why so many women get angry when you ask, what do you bring to the table? And their answer is, bring to the table. I'm not bringing anything to the table because I'm not going to allow you to use me.
this is a two-way thing. People nowadays, like some people having a bit of like an entitled attitude and not actually thinking about what they bring to the table. This is a two-way thing with modern people nowadays. Both genders, okay? You get your fair bit of like Peter Pan syndrome from some men, okay, who don't want to grow up, okay? And you get this sort of, attitude of people having an entitled attitude of expecting people to want to be with them, but not actually thinking about what they offer, okay, from both sexes, okay? I find it highly funny the way red pill community, they'll criticize like modern women, or they'll criticize Western women, and I find this kind of funny because like if modern women are different than what women used to be, or if Western women are different than what women in other areas of the world are, then this would apply to both genders, because social conditioning does not just affect one gender, does it? Okay. And the red pill community have this sort of attitude that like all women, well, most women in the West, they've been damaged and ruined, but like virtually all the men in the West are absolutely perfect. Which is why as well, like when you get men who like, if they complain that all their relationships don't work out, or they complain they can't get a girlfriend, like the red pill sort of propaganda is all about how but this is because of women, this is because of the way Western modern women are, it's not you're perfect, when like social conditioning affects men and women, okay? And just the propaganda nowadays is always like about telling everybody like, oh, you're perfect, you're wonderful, and people sort of like don't want to take as much accountability and responsibility nowadays, okay? That is both genders, okay? And like, yeah, you have feminists saying, I don't need no man, and like, if a woman's cooking and cleaning for her husband, she's being used as a slave, or if she's at home looking after the kids, she's being used as a slave. If she makes her husband a cup of tea in the morning, she's being used as a slave. But likewise, you have like some guys like, say, like from the MGTOW movement, who are like, oh, well, if you're going to work to provide for your wife, you're being used as a slave. If you spend any time talking to your wife, oh, that's you being used because time is a resource. If you're at home looking after your kids, instead of having time to go to the pub with your mates, then that's because you're being used by some nagging wife. It's like both sides. It's like any contribution to a relationship is them being used, okay? You get men and women who do not think that they should have to bring anything to the table, okay? And, relationships, some people, relationships, they might not be cut out for relationships, serious relationships and having a family, and that's perfectly fine, like if you don't want to consider another person other than yourself and you don't think it's for you to settle down, well then that's absolutely fine, there's nothing wrong with that. It's their choice whether they're a man or a woman, but I'm just saying, it's not just one gender, okay? But you will get people of both genders who they don't want to think about what they offer, but still have like an entitled attitude, like that they think they're entitled to find somebody, okay? And then other things that like guys in the red pill community complain about is, say, like complain about women being overweight and say they want to go abroad to find women who are slimmer. And I think, like, okay, fair enough, if you really prefer foreign women, like, fair enough, everybody is entitled to their preference. But again, like, obesity in the West affects men and women. In fact, it's more men that are obese than what women are. So if the men can say, like, I'm going to go abroad to find a woman because the women are slimmer and more attractive there, well, then women could say exactly the same thing about men, couldn't they? They could say, like, well, men in other countries are more attractive, okay, and fitter, alright? But if a woman said that, if a load of women were saying, like, oh, I'm going to go abroad because the men are much hotter there, then people in the red pill community would be going on, once again, about how, like, oh, this is because women are just so fussy and their hypergamy is so high that they think that they can't find a decent guy in the West, okay? So this is, once again, the hypocritical rubbish that you get from the red pill community, okay? The same as like when they say that women are more fussy about looks than what men are, okay? If women are more fussy about appearance than what men are, then why is it? Well, one, as I've said before, like, men are more likely to message women on dating sites based on attractiveness than what women are. But also, like, then why is it that it's more men that are saying they want to go and get a woman from abroad who's more attractive, okay? Why is it not many women saying, like, oh, I want to go to another country where there's less men that are overweight and they're fitter and more attractive? Like, why is it just normally always men that you hear say that then, okay? So, yeah, that's the hypocrisy when they complain about modern Western women. If you're going to complain about modern Western women, then remember that modern Western men are going to be different as well, okay?
That's why that question infuriates women right off the rip. They don't want to be used. They want to use you. You are supposed to make their lives easier. And if you don't give them a life of upper middle class or lower upper class luxury, you don't matter.
Kevin, please stop trying to make out that the gold-digging women that you aim for are the average women that you pick up on the street. No, they're not, okay? The majority of women do not expect a man to give them a life of luxury, okay? The majority of women do not think that, like, getting into a marriage and starting a family with somebody means that their life is going to be easier than when they're single. No sane person thinks that, okay? And the complaining about modern women nowadays is like, if a woman says, like, oh yeah, I can earn my own money, I'm, perfectly capable of that, I don't need a man for a provider, like, you complain about that, but then if a woman, like, didn't earn a lot of money and was saying, like, yeah, okay, I prefer the man to be the provider, then you complain about that and say that she's using him, okay? So, like, women can never win. You'll complain either way, alright? So the fact that women women work nowadays and young women are apparently out-earning young men, like, you should be pleased, okay? Because, a lot of men should be pleased because of, like, then they can have a woman get into a relationship with them for the right reasons, not for shallow reasons. But, Kevin Samuels here, he sort of likes shallow women by the sound of it, his idea being that, like, if you're a man who's rich, you're high value, even if, like, you cheat on your wife and just view her as a tool. And if she's young and pretty, she's high value, even if she's a gold digger and you don't really care about her personality, okay? So, yeah, I don't think the majority of people, like, agree with your views on relationships, of what makes a happy, healthy relationship there. Okay, Kevin?
And let me talk about this while I'm at it. I posted the Chris Rock up and it said, a man is only as faithful as his options. And I said, basically, successful men cheat. Let me say this, guys. Let me say this to the men who keep deciding to jump in and pull your cape out virtue signal. Shut up. If you're a guy who don't agree with it, if you're a guy that don't cheat, just shut up, because other men don't want to hear you saying, I don't do that. It ain't about you, homeboy. It's about getting women to understand that it is better for them to accept men as we are, whether men choose to cheat or not. Stop always jumping on posts and shit, trying to be counter for Scooby goddamn snacks. Well, it all depends on your morals in this. I don't cheat. Shut up. You're not helping. It is far more helpful if women today had the mindset of women 50, 70, 100 years ago. Boys will be boys. It's just something guys do, as long as it doesn't cause any problems.
Okay, I doubt very much that the majority of guys back in that time thought it was okay to disrespect their wife and to cheat on them. In fact, people used to be more religious, okay, so have more of a belief that it was wrong to, like, have sex, like, outside of marriage, okay. It may have been a case that there may, because women, like, didn't have as much options to be able to provide for themselves, that more women may have, like, put up with, like, husbands who cheat or husbands that treat them badly, because, like, they felt it was the only way. Which is why it's really good now that, like, women can be independent so that they don't have to put up with toxic partners like the kind of guys that are in the red pill community. But also, something that I find extremely interesting about Kevin Samuels as well is he's a Christian, okay? He is supposed to be a hardcore Christian, okay, who quotes the Bible, and he uses the Bible for stuff he wants to believe in. Like, he convinces himself that women are inferior to men because he thinks it says so in the Bible, and that men should, be able to tell women what to do and boss women around because it says so in the Bible. Okay, he convinces himself of all this, okay, but, isn't it meant to be a sin to cheat on your wife? I think everybody knows, that if you are a Christian, that you're supposed to, one, not believe in sex before marriage, okay? You're supposed to save yourself until you're married. And then once you're married, you're supposed to stay faithful and forsake all others forever, okay? I think everybody knows that. So I do not understand how Kevin Samuels, who is supposedly a hardcore Christian, can, like, sit there and go on about how it's okay for men to cheat on their wives. It's like, how can you think that? Like, are you disagreeing with God? Or do you think the 10 Commandments are just made to apply to women? Do you think that men cannot sin? It's like, right, okay, if anybody, male or female, really, really, really do not believe that they can stay faithful to one person for the rest of their life, okay, if they really think they can't do it, okay, fair enough. But then they shouldn't they shouldn't go and get into a relationship with somebody who thinks that they're going to be faithful, and they shouldn't, like, promise that they're going to be faithful forever, okay, if they're not. Okay, now in the case of Kevin Samuels, okay, alright, if he marries women who silly enough to sort of pretend to be okay with the fact that he will cheat on them, you could say, alright, technically he's not doing anything wrong, I suppose, because he's told them he's not going to stay faithful. They know he's not going to stay faithful. And they choose that lifestyle, okay? But, it doesn't sound like a healthy relationship to me. Adultery is one of the biggest causes of divorce, okay? You also get a lot of this sort of attitude with some people, like, they kind of think like if a man cheats on his wife, it's different than if a woman cheats, alright? And they'll say things like, oh yeah, but it's really hard for a man to resist sex if it's offered to him on a plate, right? The idea being that, like, if a really hot woman offers him sex and he thinks that his wife won't find out about it, so he has sex with her, that it's okay because he still loves his wife and he's still going to come back to his wife, and it's, totally meaningless with this other woman, okay? But, like, if his wife was to cheat with some hot man, that would not be okay, okay? So it's like, it's okay for the man to cheat but not the woman, alright? But, now I understand that men and women are different from each other, okay? But say, like, if you think about the differences, it's like, okay, generally speaking, men have higher sex drives than women, alright? But that doesn't mean to say that there aren't women who have really high sex drives and men who have really low sex drives, okay? But nobody in the red pill community would be saying, like, oh, it's okay for a woman to cheat on her husband if she has a really high sex drive, if, like, some really hot man came onto her, and she, thought, like, oh, well, I'll just have meaningless sex with him, but, I still love my husband. Like, none of them would think that was okay, alright? And some guys, they make this argument, they say, like, oh, but if a man wants to have sex with a woman, he has to work for it. Well, if a woman wants to have sex with a man, she doesn't have to work for it. It's like, okay, but if we're talking about a scenario where a really hot woman comes on to a man and he didn't make any advances to her, she just comes on to him and he thinks, like, oh yeah, I can cheat on my wife now and hopefully she'll never find out about it. It's like, well, in that situation, he didn't work for it then. He just happened to get lucky, okay? Alright, but, if a woman did, like, work really hard to get, like, some guy, attracted to her to want to have sex with her. No, but people would still not think it is okay to cheat on their husband, okay? So, bit fed up of this, like, biological determinism being, like, used to justify, like, it's okay when a man does something wrong, but not a woman, okay? You'll notice this, like, when they talk about male and female nature, like, when they talk about female nature in the red pill community, female nature is talked about like it is a evil inside women. Okay, and it's all about how, like, no woman could say, like, oh, it's okay for me to be a gold digger, it's in my nature. It's okay for me to monkey branch from one guy to another guy because it's in my nature. It's okay for me to, like, dump my husband for somebody better because it's in my nature. They wouldn't say that. When they talk about female nature, they are of the opinion that women should go against this supposedly evil nature, right? But then when they talk about male nature, it's like, oh, well, we should be able to cheat on our wives because, it's in our nature and it's cruelty to men to say that we shouldn't cheat on our wives. It's like, that's a load of rubbish, okay? I'm sorry. It's like, okay, it's against a man's nature to just, like, be faithful to one female. It's like, okay, but then there's still lots of men, aren't there, that like to stay faithful to one woman. So I would advise women, you go for guys like that, okay? And these guys, like Kevin Samuels, and this is another thing, and I've said this before in other videos as well, they go on about how they do not like women being easy. They don't like the fact that we live in a society where women are such sluts, and they say that men like virginal women. They like women that will, like, save themselves till they find the right man, and they'll be, faithful to the right man. They say all this, and then they talk about how, like, once they found a woman who saved herself for them, they talk about how they go and cheat on her with the same women they complain about. They complain about women being easy, they complain about women being sluts who'll just sleep with anybody, and that they want a virginal woman who saved herself, and then when they find a virginal woman who saved herself, they will go and cheat on her with the exact same women that they complain about, okay, and they'll expect that this woman who saved herself for them, they'll expect her to be okay with it, they'll expect her to be, like, alright with the fact that he's sleeping around and she's not, and she's got to look after the kids while he's out banging other women, and he's risking her life because he could bring home any sexually transmitted diseases, and she's supposed to be okay with that. She's supposed to not complain about that. And then if a woman does divorce a husband because he's cheating on her, then they'll be complaining about women divorcing their husbands. Okay, so women could never win there. Okay, like, I think, okay, I understand men and women are different, alright, but it is still hurtful for somebody, like, if their partner is cheating on them, whether you're a man or a woman, the hurt is still the same, okay? So to sit there and say, like, oh, women should just accept it, like, no, women should have a bit of self-respect. If a woman is loyal and faithful and she wants a man who will also be loyal and faithful, she has every right to ask for that, okay? And if, like, there were men contacting Kevin and saying, like, well, actually, I disagree with you, I don't think it's right to cheat on our wives, okay, for Kevin to, like, just say, oh, shut up, you're not helping matters, this is like having a very, like, big-headed sort of, like, I'm right and only my, like, opinion matters and I speak on behalf of all men. It's like, well, no, you don't speak on behalf of all men, okay? This is another way, like, red pillars are very much like the male version of radical feminists, because, like, a lot of feminists act as if they speak on behalf of all women when they don't. Well, people like this Kevin Samuels here acts as if he speaks on behalf of all men. You don't speak on behalf of all men. Not all men want to cheat on their wives, okay? And not all Christians want to break one of the 10 Commandments, okay? And they have a right to express that opinion. And if a woman wants a man who's loyal and faithful, she has every right to say that as well. Okay, but also what I tend to think as well, with people like this Kevin, who they say about how in a marriage the man should be able to have sex with other women, but the woman shouldn't be able to have sex with other men. Yeah, I'm thinking, like, how do you actually know that the woman is always being loyal and faithful? Okay, because the kind of, like, relationship that these guys advocate for, like, well, first of all, Kevin seems to be of the opinion that most marriages and relationships consist of a woman who is about 20 years old and a man who's about 50, okay, and that's not true, okay. Or if it's a case of, like I said, Kevin believes that a high value man is a guy who's rich, and like if he's paying all the bills and all that, the woman should be alright with him sleeping with other women. Okay, so you're advocating for a very shallow transactional relationship, right? So if you got like a woman who's in her early 20s and she's super hot, okay, and she could go out with a super hot Chad guy who closer to her own age and has more in common with her, but instead she's gonna go out with like a 50-year-old rich man because she's a gold digger, okay, and put up with him like sleeping with other women. Well, in that case, I would think, like, do you really trust the woman to be faithful, okay? If there are lots of, like, you know, if she's at the height of her sexual market value and there's lots of, like, really hot men after her and that she's interested in them and she's only with her husband for shallow, superficial reasons, like, because she wants him to pay the bills, well, then, in that case, I wouldn't trust her to be faithful either, because she's with a guy she's not really attracted to and not really got much in common with, and she's got lots of men that she is attracted to and has more in common with after her. So she could be cheating as well, and the husband might not even know about it. But then, like, if he does find out, and they do end up getting divorced, because, you know, she's done wrong for cheating on him, even though he's cheating on her, right? If they do end up getting divorced, well, she can then still, like, take, like, half of his money and still end up, like, really well off for, like, having married him, like, in the first place, okay? So the point is like, Kevin is at here, like, sounds to me like he's advocating for very shallow transactional relationships where, like, it's not going to work out anyway. And Kevin is, like, twice divorced, yet he's talking as if, like, he's some expert on, like, you know, he's giving all these young men, like, all this advice about how to, like, have a successful marriage when there's something that he's never had himself. And telling men that, like, say, well, actually, I love my wife, I want to be faithful to my wife, telling them to shut up. Or, like, preaching this about Christianity, even though, like, you're sinning by cheating on other women, okay? And acting like you speak on behalf of all men, and, like, oh, women have got to learn that all men, you know, men should be able to sleep around and cheat on them. It's like, and there's men specifically disagreeing with you. It's like, no, women, like, have a bit of self-respect. If you're going to be loyal and faithful, you know, asking for the man to be loyal and faithful, that's the bare minimum. Like, why should you have his children, and why should you be at home raising his children while he's out banging other women? And they're the same women that he complains about. These are the same women he says that he doesn't like. Okay, that's all I've got to say on that. Thank you for listening.